On this show, we'll discuss those pesky allergies and get fit to the ever-popular Zumba and see what's in the kitchen on healthy cooking. You don't want to miss what's in the zone, so stay tuned. Hello and welcome to Health Zone. I'm your host, Kerry Lester, and today we're going to talk about allergies. And for you in St. Louis, you know what I'm talking about. Either you have allergies, you know someone who has allergies, it's there for you. You can't move. Well, I guess you can move out of the St. Louis area if you want to, but this is such a beautiful place. Why would you want to? But we're going to talk about allergies today with Dr. Jay Moore. He is the Chief Medical Officer at SSM DePaul Health Center. So let's get going. How you doing, Doctor?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Let's jump right into it because we only got a few minutes. But let's first talk about the type of allergies that most people in St. Louis are experiencing.
Well, usually when people are talking about allergies, and there are all kinds of allergies. You can be allergic to penicillin. You can be allergic to strawberries. But usually in St. Louis, when people are talking about allergies, they're talking about seasonal allergies.
Right.
So what they're talking about is, you know, the wintertime is good. I miss the sun, but I don't have any nasal symptoms. And then along comes March or April, and bam, all of a sudden my eyes start to water. I start to itch. Start to rub my eyes a lot, they turn red, my nose starts to run, I sneeze, I cough, I have to go to bed with a box of Kleenex next to my bed, and it lasts until a certain month or a certain week, and then it seems to get better, and things get a little better for a while, and then all of a sudden they get worse again. So that is really the time that, you know, it really makes spring and summer very miserable for some people, and that's kind of allergies I think that most people mean when they're talking about those specific ones, or the seasonal allergies.
Explain a little bit so people can understand how allergies actually work on the body.
Sure.
Because you hear allergies, you talk about, well, take an antihistamine, take a decongestant, take this, take that. How do these things work?
Well, your body is very well adapted to being able to figure out what belongs in the body and what doesn't belong in the body. You have an immune system that's able to detect, for example, when you have a white blood cell that's going through your body, you know, your body knows that that's something that it belongs to you. It's identified in a certain way, and your body knows to let that go and leave it alone. Now, if you have a bacteria or a virus that's in your bloodstream, and one of those white blood cells comes along and sees that, then that cell knows that's something that doesn't belong here, and I need to fight that off and kill it because it's going to try to hurt me. And so your body knows how to do that, and it reacts to it, identifies and reacts to these foreign substances. Now, sometimes the body gets confused, and there are certain things that can infect in a way or affect the body where it can come in and your body thinks that it's something foreign that it needs to take care of, and so your whole body goes onto alert, and you trigger this immune system response, and you start to have all sorts of symptoms that are designed to get rid of this thing that's come into you. And in the case of allergies, what we see a lot is that it's usually a grain of pollen or sometimes a certain kind of spore or a mold or a yeast that grows all around us. It's growing, you know, on the ground and on trees and so on and so forth. And when the weather gets warm and those things start to grow and all that pollen starts to drop off, you breathe that stuff in. Your body thinks that that's a foreign invader. Now it's not. Actually, the pollen won't hurt you a bit. There's nothing wrong with pollen. It's fine. It's just part of life. But when these things go into your nose or they go into your mouth or your eyes, your body reacts to that, and it's really the reaction to the pollen that causes most of the symptoms.
Now, there are, like I said earlier, antihistamines, decongestants, and then there are more, prescription type of medications that get prescribed. Why the different type of medications?
Well, I think that it's useful to start with, you know, how your body responds, what it is that your body is doing. And what's going on when you have an allergic reaction, your body is trying to flush that out. And it does this by activating a specific kind of blood cell that's called a mast cell. And those mast cells have granules of histamine. And the histamine is released, and what the histamine does is it causes blood vessels to expand and fluid production to increase, and you wind up with more fluids in the area where that offending substance is. So when you breathe the pollen in, for example, those mast cells are activated. And once the mast cells are activated and the histamine comes out, you start to get the runny nose and you get the sneezing and the itching, and all of that is, it's all triggered by histamine. And so the first and most common way to treat an allergy is using an antihistamine. And what an antihistamine does is an antihistamine actually goes into those cells and it binds those cells up so that they don't release the histamines as aggressively as they would have otherwise. And when that happens and the histamines can't be released, then you don't have the symptoms anymore. And so those are your over-the-counter Benadryl. You can get over-the-counter Claritin, and a lot of people have confusion about which is which and which ones they can buy. Benadryl is the trade name. That's a trademarked name for a generic drug that's called diphenhydramine. And if you go into your pharmacy, if you go to Walmart or Target or CVS or Walgreens or wherever it is that you go, you can walk to the section where the Benadryl is, and right next to the Benadryl, you'll see other boxes of medicine that are, it's just called diphenhydramine, or sometimes they call it things like Wall Drill. I know at Walgreens it's always Wall Drill,
right.
And it's the generic version of the Benadryl. What's the difference between these things? The answer is nothing. There is no difference. It's the exact same thing. It's just that the generic version is $3 or $4 cheaper than the version that has the brand name on it. There's no difference. If I gave them both to you, you'd respond the same way to one as you would the other. People still feel better when they buy the brand name, and so they'll pay that extra $3 or $4. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it'll also help you go to sleep too.
Well, that's right. The Benadryl is very sedating, and so diphenhydramine, I usually recommend that people take that 1 or 2 pills. Usually try it at night to begin with, because it will put you to sleep. And if you're not used to it especially, you can get really sleepy, and if you're going to be going to work or driving or doing anything, like if you're a truck driver or you're you drive a bulldozer or you work on top of one of these buildings that they're building, downtown, the tall skyscraper kind of buildings, then we don't want you taking that.
That wouldn't be
you
good.
Get tired. No, you'd fall right off.
Yeah,
you don't want that. That'd be bad.
Bad. Okay, so now we talked about that. Now, how can people decide, or how can they find out what they're allergic to?
Well, it's a good question, and the answer that I come back with is, well, why does it matter? Because the actual allergy that you have, in some cases, you might discover that there are some ways to avoid a particular thing that you have that you're allergic to. Okay, but if I do a bunch of testing and I come back and I tell you that you're allergic to birch trees, what are you going to do about that? I mean, not go places where there are birch trees? I mean, there's birch tree everywhere. You got to
chop them down.
Right. Well, yeah, and you chop them down in your yard, but your neighbor's still got one, right? And so that stuff is still floating over. You can't really get away from that stuff. A lot of people are allergic to oak, which is very prevalent around here. You can't get away from oak pollen. A lot of people are allergic to ragweed. Ragweed tends to peak in the summer months. Usually in August is when you start to really see ragweed peak. That's everywhere. You can't really get rid of ragweed. Now, if you're allergic to something that's an indoor allergy and you have allergy symptoms all year long and you're allergic to a certain kind of dust or insect, then there are things that you can do, or a cat. Then there are things that you can do in your house that can prevent that. I mean, obviously with a cat, you can, get rid of your cat, which most people
don't
really
say that.
Do.
No, don't say that.
You might find that vacuuming the floor a little more often, or using one of those HEPA filters or something like that might really help in that case. But for your standard run-of-the-mill seasonal allergies, it's April, it's May, you start to get the sniffy, stuffy nose, and you feel like you have to sneeze and your eyes are watering a lot. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're allergic to oak, or if you're allergic to a kind of flower, or if you're allergic to ragweed. You're going to have those symptoms no matter what. Your doctor is probably the best person to go to and just ask that question and say, hey, what should I do? Should I just take some antihistamines and get rid of it? And by the way, getting back real quick to the antihistamines, if the Benadryl makes you real sleepy, you can take one of the Claritins or the Claritin knockoffs, and those are a little bit less sedating. They can still make you tired, but not as tired as the Benadryl.
Now, we're not going to talk about it because too much about the D part of it, but the difference between Allegra, Allegra D, Claritin, Claritin D, Walzir, Walzir D, the decongestant, many people feel that I have to have the D.
Right.
Is that absolutely necessary to have that in some cases?
It's not necessary, but it can help. And for people who have allergy symptoms that need to stay awake during the day when an antihistamine really makes them tired, then using that D part of those medicines helps. And what the D usually means is it means a decongestant. There's another drug that's in with the diphenhydramine, the Benadryl, that will help dry your nose up. Those are usually medicines that are a lot like Sudafed, or the generic name for Sudafed is pseudoephedrine. And there are a lot of medicines which are similar to that. And the way that these medicines work is they also act on the blood vessels, but they act directly on the blood vessels themselves, and they shrink those blood vessels down so that there's not as much blood flow. So if there's not as much flow, then even when the histamine is released and it causes those blood vessels to expand, they don't expand as much. And so you're kind of, you're hitting it from two directions. You're getting rid of the trigger with the histamine, and then you're also getting rid of kind of the base problem with the blood vessel. So if you combine those two things together, they can really help. The good thing about the decongestants, like a Sudafed product, is that they don't make you as sleepy, but they can make your mouth dry. And they're related. This is a little, you probably know this, and maybe you've done other segments on this, I don't know, but they're related to some of the amphetamines that people take, speed and meth and things like that that you hear about. And so those, the pseudoephedrine, you actually have to, depending on what part of the city you live in, you may have to get a prescription for it that you take to your pharmacy, or you may have to buy it over the counter from the pharmacist. Personally, myself, I think that kind that you get the prescription for, or that you get from behind the counter, works a lot better than the kind that you can get that you can just get out on the aisle. I think they work a little bit better. So I think that a combination between those decongestants, the Sudafeds and those type of drugs, and the antihistamines like Benadryl and those type of drugs, I think a combination works really well for a lot of people. For some people, one or the other might work fine. Really, even before you go to the doctor, you can experiment a bit. So you can try the decongestant first, you can then go and try the antihistamine, then you can try the product that combines both of them and see what works best for you.
One thing I would ask you to talk about real quick is the fact that the D can and oftentimes does raise blood pressure.
It does, you're right. And that's true with the ones that you have to get from behind the counter,
exactly.
The pseudoephedrine. If you have high blood pressure, that can be a problem. It usually, almost always, does not raise blood pressure enough to really be a problem. In some people, they can have reactions to it. Everybody responds differently to drugs, and so if you are on a high blood pressure medicine, or you have a history of high blood pressure, you want to be real careful taking those. I wouldn't say, as a doctor, I wouldn't say that it's never suitable to take one, but I would certainly check in with your doctor and say, hey, can we monitor this? And your doctor will probably say, well, let's try a couple other things first. And then if those things don't work, then why don't you come in and we'll kind of talk through this and figure out how we might be able to do this safely. What you don't want is you don't want that blood pressure to shoot up really high, which is much higher than what your body is used to, and then put you at risk for a stroke or a heart attack.
Okay. Now, earlier when in the introduction I mentioned here in St. Louis we have high allergy. Now there are other areas of the country that don't have near the amount of allergy problems that we do. And as an example, my nephew, who now lives in New York, came back for about a week, and his allergies kicked in, and he said, now I know why I left St. Louis. Right. Now, why is St. Louis such a hotbed of allergies?
Well, it's our weather. We have a very wet climate. It's really humid in the summertime, and we get nice warm temperatures. I mean, just a few days ago, you and I are filming this in April, and just a few days ago in March, it was in the 90s. Right. And I know that we'll probably have a day or two in May or June, we'll probably get down in the 60s, We have weather that's cool enough for some species of grasses and trees to grow, but warm enough for other species of grasses and trees to grow. And what we get is a beautiful landscape. We get a place where it's green a lot of the year, and we get lots of flowers and lots of budding trees, and really, there are only a few months out of the year where there's just no color at all, and there's really nothing growing outside when it gets really, really cold. Well, that blessing is kind of a curse to people who have allergies, because when everything can grow, then if you're allergic to anything, it probably grows in St. Louis. We have the warm weather stuff that some people are allergic to things that only grow in the south. We've got that. There are some things that only grow in the north. Well, we've got that too. There are some things that only grow when you're near a river. Well, we got the two biggest rivers in the country right here, so we've got that. So if you're allergic to anything, this is the allergy capital of the world. If you're allergic to anything, it'll happen in St. Louis. And it doesn't surprise me at all that your son, you said, was from New York and came back and has symptoms here but doesn't have them in New York. He's probably got some of those southern allergies, or maybe some of the river allergies that other people don't have. Funny thing, in the past, people used to go down and they would live in Phoenix because it's in the desert, and they don't have as much growing stuff there, and so you don't have as many allergies. But in the past several years, really probably the last couple of decades now, as they've irrigated more and people grow their lawns and they try to green up the city, Phoenix is actually almost as bad as St. Louis for allergies. I've got friends who live in Phoenix and say, here I am in the desert, and I'm getting these allergic symptoms because of all the flowers they've planted all over the place.
I know, I have friends who moved to Phoenix because of the allergies, because of that, and they're having the same problem. It's like, my gosh, okay, what are you going to do next?
Just tell them, just come back.
Just come on back. You might as well come back and enjoy it.
Here, at least you got the Cardinals. So if you're going to have the allergies, at least you got the Cardinals to root for.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, well, we're almost done here, and I'd like to know if there's anything that you would like for our allergy sufferers to know that we didn't talk about.
Well, I'd say that if you've gone to the pharmacy and you've picked up a couple of allergy medicines and you've tried taking those and they don't seem to be working for you, you should go see your doctor, because there are a number of prescriptions that you can take. There are lots of therapies that we haven't talked about, things that you can squirt right up into your nose, other prescription drugs that you can take that work in other ways on the body. And if things are really bad, you can even go see an allergist who can do some desensitization and can kind of turn your immune system off for those particular things that really cause your symptoms. So if you're suffering a lot and it's really making you miserable, it's a great idea to go see a doctor. This is very treatable. Allergies are very treatable. There's no reason that people should have to suffer with allergies. We can take care of them. There are lots of different therapies, lots of different drugs, lots of different ways that we can help you avoid it. So I'd say get a primary care doctor, go in and see that doctor, tell them what you've got. They can help you out a lot.
Great. Well, I think we've hit on a lot of different things, and I think we've educated people quite a lot. So I appreciate you coming out and talking to us.
Thanks so much.
And that's Dr. Jay Moore, and he is the Chief Medical Officer at SSM DePaul Health Center. Now, we did talk about a lot of medicines. Please follow instructions. Be very careful about using some of those drugs, because if you do abuse them, they can hurt you more than they can help you. And stay tuned for more Health Zone.
I'm a face of influenza. Health officials now recommend everyone 6 months of age and older get immunized against influenza this and every year.
We all are faces of influenza.
Vaccination is safe and is the best way to help protect yourself and your family. The American Lung Association urges everyone 6 months of age and older, and we mean everyone, to get vaccinated. Visit facesofinfluenza.org.
He has spoken with astronauts and cosmonauts.
W5 Lima Foxtrot Lima in the spacecraft Columbia.
Bounced signals off meteors and the moon. Joked with rock stars. Country stars. Heard the cosmic songs of the real stars. And tickled the ionosphere. And he never left the ground. He's a radio ham. Learn how at helloradio.org.
Hi, and welcome to Healthy Cooking. I'm Caryn Dugan, your host. I'm also known as STL Veg Girl. Today we are cooking up, actually blending up, a green morning smoothie, perfect for anybody on the go. Today's ingredients include a cup and a half of spinach, some flaxseed meal, frozen bananas, frozen berries, and just a little bit of soy milk. Let's get started. Oh, and an apple too. So we're going to go ahead and just take a regular old blender. You don't need a fancy one. I'm going to take just one apple, and this is a Honeycrisp apple. I love it because of the size. You get a lot of bang for your buck, and the crispness of the apple. Now, whoops, I'm not going to peel the apple because there's a lot of fiber in the peel, and really, if you ask just any health professional, we're not getting enough fiber in our diets. So taking most of the apple, and I'm going to put in, now this is a frozen banana, and this is where you're going to get your smoothiness. A lot of people think it's from the milk or the soy milk or any kind of beverage you want to use in there. It really comes from your bananas, your frozen bananas. So we'll put in the equivalent to about 1 banana. Then we're also going to put in some frozen berries. Whoops, had a jumper there. And this is flaxseed meal. A lot of people like to put flaxseed in their yogurt or in their breads when they're baking, and it's a wonderful omega-3. Now, here's a little hint. Always get your flaxseed ground up because our bodies cannot digest the full seed. So when you see cookies or breads or bagels or anything like that that have full flax seeds, you're probably not going to get, again, the biggest bang for your buck. Your body is just not going to be able to break that down. So always buy it all ground up. Then we're going to go ahead and just put a little bit of soy milk to start, just to get some liquid in there. We're going to give it a little bit of a blend, just to help it out. Then we'll get to the green part. You have to help it out a little bit. Add a little more. And you can use any soy milk, rice milk, hemp milk, almond milk is good too. All right. And this is really nice. These frozen berries means that you do not have to add any extra sugar. Okay, now we're going. Now here's a little trick. To make this green, we're obviously going to add greens. But first, you always want to wash your greens. And a lot of people think that just putting any kind of greens, any kind of lettuce, any vegetables, anything, in a colander is really going to do the job. It's really going to get that grime and grit off of it. Not so. Take 2 bowls. One, put your greens in there and submerge in water. Then, in your other bowl, take those greens and put them in there. And you will see that there is a lot of grime and grit, even in the organic ones. Organic greens are not going to have the pesticides, obviously, in them, but they will have some dirt from the ground. Dirt will not kill you, but if you're having your mother-in-law over for dinner and she starts on the dirt, well, it's not a good thing. Not that it's happened. So we're going to go ahead and put said greens into the blender. Give it another blend. Now I'm working with probably 1.5 cups to 2 cups. You can make it, you can put 3 cups in there. You can put whatever your taste buds enjoy. You can see that we're getting green. I'm going to put the rest of my greens in there. And depending on the speed or the power of your blender, the amount of milk, quote unquote, you put in there, it's all gonna depend on how many steps this is gonna take. I think we're good. All right, serve this up. This is probably good for 2 or 3 days of commuting to work with your breakfast in your hand, or it's good for kids too. I promise you don't even taste the greens. It's all fruit. And that is your easy green morning smoothie. Thank you for watching Healthy Cooking. I'm Caryn Dugan, and for more information on plant-based cooking classes, please contact my website at stlveggirl.com.
My dad's one of the producers who's there tonight.
Bring this sweet.
Isn't this a great backyard? And the neighborhood is close to everything. What's that smell?
When is a good time for septic tank failure? Backups can find their way into our water. Have your septic tank inspected annually and pumped as needed, and avoid flushing things like plastics, diapers, or household chemicals. Clean water. It's all up to us.
And wait till you see the kitchen.
My name is Tracy Green. I'm a licensed Zumba instructor. I've been teaching Zumba since December 2010. It's when I went and received my license. I actually drove all the way to Chicago. I've been taking Zumba since '08. I actually found an interest in Zumba for myself. I was approximately 75 pounds more than what I am now. So this was a grand health benefit for me. Which made me want to help others, which is why I ended up becoming licensed. Zumba is a Latin-inspired fitness craze right now. Everybody's into Zumba. It's a lot of fun. My students actually have an opportunity to come to class and use maracas and tambourines during their routines just to add a little more flavor. The typical Zumba student on the first day is a complete beginner, which is completely fine. I am pretty high impact, so I encourage all of my students to go at their level, to be entirely comfortable with what they're doing, and don't worry about it. Eventually they'll pick up all the moves, they'll know the routines. The routines typically have 4 to 5 steps in them that we repeat, so it's not really hard to catch on. The health level of the individuals that take Zumba actually is normally, just as I said, with their physical level, just beginners. They're just beginning to want to do exercise again. Most students have not exercised in 20 to 30 years for my older ones. Some of them are young. I do get a lot of young students, but it's pretty hip, so everyone has a really, really good time. I am currently teaching Zumba at the City of Florissant James J. Egan Community Center, where I teach on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 5:15 to 6:15. In addition to that, I teach at Club Fitness, Florissant location on North Lindbergh, and I teach that class every other Friday and Saturday. So I am there at 5 o'clock on Friday nights, and I am there at noon on Saturdays. You want to make sure that you pay for a session when you join the James J. Egan, and when you come over to Club Fitness, you just have to have a fitness membership. Otherwise, you'll have a good time.